There's 10 reasons why, 10 economic reasons why we're in that 60-mile radius, because all 10 are happening at the same time in the same place. We have not seen any other place in the United States of America where all 10 are present.
This is Henry Washington, and you're listening to the Average Joe Finances Podcast.
Welcome to the Average Joe Finances Podcast. Are you trying to get out of debt, invest, or just not sure where to start? Then this is the place for you. We discuss different ways to get out of the rat race and build your wealth. Join us on this wild ride to financial freedom.
Hey, welcome back to the Average Joe Finances Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Cavaggioni, and today's guest is Brad Warren. And me and Brad are going to be talking about land banking, and it's something I'm really excited to learn more about and learn more about Brad and his story. So, Brad, welcome to the show.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate being here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, first off, right off the bat, I want to start this podcast the same way I start every show, and we want to know more about you. So if you could share a little bit about yourself, share your story. Who is Brad Warren?
Well, given that I'm 72 years old, that could take a couple of hours, so I'll give you the short version.
You don't look it, so that's good.
Well, thank you. Thank you. For those of you that can see, if you're just listening, maybe you can tell from my tone. But anyway, grew up in New York, went to MIT. Then I went to Europe for a year and hitchhiked around with a backpack on. Came back to New York, hitchhiked across the U.S. to California, stopping at Mardi Gras in New Orleans and hiked the Grand Canyon. Came out to California, got my master's in education at UC Berkeley, and started my career basically as a consultant and a coach. I had a stint as a PE teacher for a while, worked for the Social Security Administration, but then most of my time was spent being a real estate business coach and a speaker and a trainer. So I got to travel all over the world using my mouth to earn money. It was great because I love to talk and tell jokes and stories, and did that for a really long time. Worked for Keller Williams Real Estate Company for a while. And 5 years ago, I got my real estate license and started to work with my business partner. Her name is Marcella Silva, doing what's called land banking. 5 years prior to that, I started investing in land through her company, the company that she works for. And after those 5 years, I was actually sending her so much business and so many referrals. She said, "Stop sending me referrals, get your license and come work on my team." And I said, "Okay." So that's a very short story and background about me.
All right, Brad, that's awesome. So I have to ask you, though, before we even go any further, what part of New York are you from?
I was born in Brooklyn.
Okay.
Spent the first 5 years in Kew Gardens in Queens. And then we moved to Great Neck on Long Island because they had a much better school system. And my parents wanted me to go to a better school. I was the first of four boys. Nice. So I grew up in Great Neck starting in 1956 is when we moved there and lived there, till I left for college.
Awesome. I'm from Long Island as well. That's why I was asking that. So is my wife, right? So it's funny because the person who I interviewed earlier today was also from Long Island. I've been getting a lot of Long Islanders on my show lately. It's a little weird. I don't know what's going on here.
Which part? Where are you from?
Suffolk County in Central Islip. Yeah.
Okay. A little further out. Okay.
Yep. So, and then my wife's from Patchogue. So, it's so funny. So, okay, cool. So you went from Long Island and you went to MIT, kind of backpacked a little bit on the other side of the pond there. Right. And then came back to New York, right? Now, as you were going, and actually one of the other things I want to point out too is you'll understand this and kind of respect this as well, is, being from Long Island, New York, sometimes we talk a lot. We love to talk, right? And it's funny when you said that, you were able to travel around and use your mouth to make money, right? Because you're just talking and love to talk. It's the same thing for me, man. I absolutely love it. That's why I've been doing more speaking gigs at conferences. I have my own meetup and stuff that I'm doing out here now too. I love talking to people about real estate, about building wealth, just different ways that they can, build wealth and get out of that pit of the golden handcuffs and the shackles of that W-2 and 9 to 5. There's so many different ways to break free. And I love spreading that gospel, so to say, right? So that's why I'm thrilled to have you on to talk about this, because this is, I've had people come on and talk about land before, but this is, I think we can go a little bit more in depth into what land banking is and how you can use it to build generational wealth, because that's usually the end goal for most of my listeners, right? Is not only do they want to build wealth for themselves, but they want to build that generational wealth for their families, right? So it can carry on to the next generation. So yeah, I want to go right into it, man. So let's just go right into it and say, what is land banking?
So if I was at a mixer and you came up to me and looked at my name tag, which is Brad Warren, land banker, you say, land banker, what's that? So here's the 30-second elevator pitch. I help patient investors diversify and build their portfolios by investing in land that is strategically placed in the path of growth in one very specific area of Southern California. They hold, and we tell people this is a longer term buy and hold strategy, 7 to 10 years. So this is not for the faint of heart. This is not somebody that wants cash flow or a flip or, get rich quick. This is very patient, set it and forget it real estate investing. And your exit strategy then is to wait for a developer who wants to build 500 homes or a shopping center or 1,000-acre solar farm. They need your land, even if it's only an acre. You're right in the middle of their project. They can't build their project without your land. So you wait for the developer to knock on your door and say, Mike, I need your land. And you say, great, pay me for it, and I'll be happy to sell it to you. And that's where the generational wealth comes in. We average basically 3 to 7x return on our investors. Well, me as well. I'm also an investor. I own 11 properties with my wife, but we want our investors to get somewhere in the range of 3 to 7x return.
I love that. Is there like a time frame, that like a goal time frame that you look for?
We tell people 7 to 10 years.
Okay.
Now it can happen
7
sooner.
to 10 years for 7 to 10x. I like that.
Well, 7 to 10 years for 3 to 7x.
Oh, 3 to 7. Okay.
3 to 7. Yeah. Let's make sure we're saying the right numbers. And now I even have to keep reminding myself, what did I just say? So yeah, it's 7 to 10 years, though it could happen sooner and it could happen later.
Sure.
And later I can tell you a story of a later. And what one of my properties is 10 years old, and people keep asking me, aren't you concerned? And I'm not. And I can go into that later if it's of interest to your listeners to explain why I don't care. If I have to wait 20 years, I don't care, because I'm going to make $1 million on that one property. So,
awesome.
3 to 7x return, 7 to 10 year hold on average. I can't use the G word and say guaranteed because I'll lose the real estate license. But based on the 43-year history of the company, that's what we see over time.
Yeah, we stay away from that G word around here anyway. So
Okay,
no, that's fantastic. Because usually when you hear the G word, it's like, oh, snake oil salesman, what's going on here? Nothing. There's nothing in life guaranteed. Every investment carries risk, and we all know that, right? So now you started off in, just regular real estate, right? You got your real estate license as you were speaking and stuff, and you joined Keller Williams, right? That's how you started in real estate?
I started coaching people way back in 1978.
Okay, so coaching was first.
Coaching kind of was first. I actually wanted to be a guidance counselor in the public schools. I had gotten a master's in education and what's called a California Pupil Personnel Services credential, which allowed me to be a guidance counselor. Couldn't find a job, so I became a consultant. And it just so happened that a lot of my early clients were real estate agents. So I started to learn a lot about that. I started investing with my wife. Oh, goodness, we don't even remember. It's been so long. It's maybe 25, 30 years ago. Some of our first investments were in syndications. We strip malls, some land, which didn't work out so well because I didn't do it the right way. So started investing a long time ago and worked a lot with real estate agents. And then eventually Keller Williams hired me as one of they call MAPS coaches, MAPS, Mega Achievement Productivity Systems. It was the in-house Keller Williams coaching team that coached all the Keller Williams agents. And I worked for them for about 6.5 years and then kept coaching on my own. And so that was kind of how I got into the real estate and made lots of mistakes, did well, did not so well. And then eventually met Marcella. She's now my coach, my mentor, my boss, my business partner, all rolled into one. And it started out by me first investing with her and the company she represents, Velour Enterprises.
Right.
And then after buying several properties, then I started telling all my friends about it because I was on fire. I thought this was the best thing since sliced bread. And I became what's called a finder. And she paid finder's fees. She actually gave me money for sending my friends to her. And when they bought, she paid me. And I was making $10,000 a year for almost 5 years in a row just on finder's fees. So I was, wow, this is pretty cool. And then eventually, on the same day my wife was dismissed from, I won't mention the company because I don't want to get in trouble because they'll sick their lawyers on me flat, but she got dismissed from her company after 16 years. And that very night, we were going out with Marcella and her husband, Rick. And I said, let's go tell them our story about you losing your job. And now, we're going to live on my coaching income. And she says, all right, your income's up and down and up and down. We go and we tell them our story, expecting some commiseration. And they start laughing at us. I said, what do you guys, what the F, what's going on here? They said, Brad, you're not going to believe this. Our company had a moratorium on hiring new real estate agents between 2 weeks ago when we scheduled tonight's dinner and tonight. They lifted the moratorium. You're the first agent that we're talking to that we want to invite to join our team. And I was like, what? One door had shut really tight. Another door opened wide. 2.5 hours later, I haven't said yes, Mike. We're driving home. My wife leans over in the car. She says, I don't get it. This is the perfect opportunity. You love land. We already owned, at that point, it was 6 properties at that point. We now have 11. She said, you love land. You love talking about land. You go to Southern California. You even have little baggies of dirt from your properties. Why didn't you take this career opportunity? I said, sweetie, you're asking me to leave my, at that point, 40-year career doing speaking and training and coaching worldwide. And I had a great career. And she said, she leans over. This is a direct quote. It's right up next to my right ear while I'm driving. She says, Brad, you'd be an idiot not to take this new career opportunity. And I did not marry an idiot. And I laughed so hard, I almost drove off the road. And I said, you're right. I'm not an idiot. I'm going to take it. I'll call Marcel in the morning. 8 days later, my license was moved and been doing it for almost 5 years now.
Awesome. You laughed, she laughed, you said yes. That's awesome, man. Yeah. So, and then, you got to move into something. Now, obviously you were very passionate and loved what you did as a coach, but you also were very passionate and loved what you were doing with land. So you got to move from one thing that you really enjoyed doing into something else that you really enjoyed doing, but now it's got that newness and freshness to it, right? So it's kind of like, it's a whole paradigm shift, not just a career shift, but a whole paradigm shift that happened for you there. Now, you were already investing in land, right? So you had a good idea of like how this whole business process looked. You were already sending people to her, and I bet the reason why she was like, hey, you're the first person they had in mind is because of the amount of people that you were sending to her, which is fantastic. And I think that also goes to show that when you're excited about something and you share it with your network and it's something that you talk about a lot, it can lead to even greater success when you bring other people on board with you on that journey. That's what I like about real estate in general is like, yeah, you could be a lone wolf if you want, and you could still be successful, but you're only going to go so far, right? When you start bringing in other people and surrounding yourself with people that also enjoy what you're doing and real estate and just that whole entire community, man, it just changes the whole world around you.
Yes, absolutely. Quick comment on that, Mike.
Yeah.
When I was coaching, I didn't really go for referrals. I mostly did speaking to get coaching clients. I would go to a real estate office. I would teach lead generation for 30 minutes or an hour. And then people would come up and say, hey, I want to hire you as my coach. And I would have them for 6 months, a year, 3 years, 5 years, whatever. And they would leave and I could do more speaking and I'd get more clients. But Marcella's husband, Rick Silva, is an excellent referral coach. He's one of the best in the world, as far as I'm concerned. And he said, if you're going to be on our team, you're not going to do it your old way. You're not going to go out and speak. You're going to build your business by referral only. And the first couple of years, I didn't quite get it. I wasn't that good at it. I made a lot of mistakes. And finally, I just kind of surrendered. And I said, okay, Rick, teach me how to build my business by referral only. And he did. And I implemented that strategy. Mostly it's through podcasts. So it is speaking, but in a little bit different way. And it was mostly COVID driven. It's like I feel a little guilty when I have to talk about it, but COVID forced me to get away from going to networking events in person where I would meet 1, 2, maybe 3 people, one of whom might be interested, to going online. I spend, 3, 4 hours a day in Zoom meetings. I love Zoom. It's amazing. I wish I had bought stock a few years ago because it went way up.
Right.
And I think it's still up there. And everything is by Zoom. I now have clients, not only all across the United States, I have international clients who I never, ever, ever would have met had it not been for Zoom and podcasts and speaking like this. I've got a guy in Thailand. I've got one in Mexico City. I got one in Panama. I've got a couple in Canada now. I'm currently talking to a guy. He's from Germany, but he lives in Ecuador. I mean, they're like all over the place.
Yeah.
And I got a guy from Germany who's now in Turkey. He travels with his wife. So absolutely amazing, the whole network that I'm building, and being on your show again. Thank you so much for putting me on your show, because it's just one more piece in the puzzle.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. I mean, that's one of the beautiful things about technology. And, there's a lot of downsides to this pandemic that we've had, right? And a lot of people focus on that. But you can also look at some of the positives that have come out of this. Like, there's a lot more freelancers out there. There's a lot more people kind of breaking free and becoming their own business owners and being successful at it while doing it. Because now, as people are transitioning everything to online and working from home, the impact that you make and your reach goes so much further, right? When you could sit here and have a Zoom call, like here I am in Hawaii. And where are you at right now? Are you in California?
I live in Northern California in Castro Valley, which is near Oakland.
So we're about 3,200 miles apart, separated by ocean, right?
Yep.
And we're sitting here able to have this conversation in real time as if we were sitting across from each other. So that's just one of the amazing things that we kind of got out of this. It was almost like a forced push on technology to make things easier to communicate around the world. So I absolutely love that. Okay, let's get back on topic here, though, because we could talk about that kind of stuff all day.
We can talk about all kinds of things for a long time, but yes, let's talk about dirt.
So let's talk about dirt. So you were talking about the specific area where you buy land, right? And you were talking about how you strategically find that land to find it in areas that are growing and developing, right? To kind of be the person that's going to be like right in the middle of something that might be going down. So they need to build over your area. So that's the thing, right? So how do you actually find that land?
That's a great question. So our company, which has been doing this for 43 years, the current CEO is the son of the founder. He's a PhD economist, and they have a very specific process. We actually have what's called a research and acquisition team. These people, all they do all day long, what they're doing right now as you and I are talking, is they're out looking for vacant land in the 60-mile radius around Los Angeles, because that's the only place that we invest. The land has to meet 16 specific criteria or we won't touch it. So for every 30 properties that the company looks at, we buy one. We call it the 16-point comprehensive analysis. That's the official title. So our company buys that one very cheap. People say, well, how do you find it cheap? One source, divorcing couples. Believe it or not, that's what the CEO told me when I asked him point blank. I said, how do you guys find this cheap land? Divorcing couples, state of California, community property state. Maybe grandma bought the land 20 years ago for a few $1,000s. And now the couple is divorcing, and one of them either has to buy out the other one or they have to sell it. And it's like a fire sale. They need to just dump it as quickly as they can. We buy it, and then we mark it up. That creates cash flow to run the company. The investor still gets to buy it below market because we don't mark it all the way up. We build some equity in right at the get-go. And then the investor has the patience to wait the 7 to 10 years on average for the development to catch up to that area, and the developer to come knock on the door and say, hey, I need your land because I'm building X, whatever X happens to be.
Yeah, I love that, man. That's a great strategy. And it's long-term, right? Anything in real estate, none of it is a get rich quick thing, right? It always takes time. So being able to come into this now, this takes a little bit longer than what some people would probably put together when they look at real estate, right? Like if you're in real estate syndications, right, it's usually a 5-year hold period.
Right.
I think 3 to 5 years, right, depending on how good the deal is. That's what I do myself, right? So I do real estate syndications. Now, the thing is, though, the what you can actually get back out of this for as little as you have to put in, you're not spending as much on land as you are on like an apartment building, right? A multifamily
Correct.
asset, or even just a single family home that you're buying as a rental property.
Correct.
So by doing that, there's a lot more leverage and a lot more leeway to get more, right? To snatch up as much as possible.
Well, I assume you were kind of leading in the direction of asking me, what's the minimum investment, Brad?
Well, that was coming up next.
That was coming. All right. See, we're starting to get to know each other pretty well here. So our minimum investment is $25,000, which actually is fairly typical even for a syndication.
Yes.
That's usually the mid 25 to 50, somewhere in that vicinity. I've heard a few or 100, but those are a little more high end. But it's 25,000 minimum. And the returns are generally in the 3 to 7x, as we've talked about. And you can use a self-directed IRA or a self-directed 401k to invest. So a lot of my investors, I'd say probably 60, 70% of my investors are using retirement funds, which are basically, if they were lucky, they got out of the stock market a couple of years ago, put it all in cash, and they're making what, 1%, 1.5% a year on a money market account. If even that, I don't know what they are. Maybe now they're up to 2 or 3%. You're still losing money because inflation is higher. So a lot of my clients are using their self-directed IRA, which is an IRA, a certain kind of IRA. We won't go into the details, obviously, but they convert their regular IRA to a self-directed IRA. Or have you chatted with your people on these shows about a Roth IRA? Are your listeners familiar? Okay, so that's tax-free. So my wife and I had 11 properties. 9 of our properties are in a Roth and 2 are in a regular IRA. So when those 9 sell, we don't owe Uncle Sam anything, nothing, nada, zero, zilch, big goose egg. So there are ways to get in relatively inexpensively. Now I grill my clients. I say, okay, are you going to need this $25,000 in the next decade for your kid's college education, for a hip replacement, for a midlife crisis? You want to buy a Lamborghini and this is just your down payment on it, maybe 5% down payment on a Lamborghini. Are you going to need, some life event, like a wedding, and you're going to need this money? I grill them, because if there's any chance that they're going to need it sooner, it's illiquid. You can't sell the land for the return that we want you to get until the developer knocks on your door, and we have no control over that. Obviously, we're in the path of growth. We only invest in cities that have business-friendly city government. They have a lot of infrastructure going on. They're putting millions into infrastructure. Follow the money, follow the roads where they're putting off-ramps on freeways. They're going to build something there. So that's where we look for some land. Sometimes it's right off the freeways. Get it cheap before anybody else gobbles it up. So there's a lot to land banking and the minimum and all that, but that is a way that most of our people do. A 1031 exchange, the two that I just literally today opened escrow on a $50,000 property and a $70,000 property, and both of them are 1031 exchanges. So lots of different ways, but I would say it's cash, retirement funds, and 1031 exchange are the top 3 ways that my clients do their investing.
That's amazing. So there's so many ways that you can actually get into it. It doesn't just have to be cash that you have. I mean, you could look at your retirement funds. If you're selling a property, a rental property, and you want a 1031 exchange it, that's another great way. So yeah, so many awesome ways to get into it. So now this is more of like, I'm just curious, right? Because if you're looking at that 60-mile radius around Los Angeles, what happens when all that land is gone? Are you going to look like to maybe move to another city and start looking around that area? Or do you think like it's going to be a while before that happens?
I am smiling. I know your listeners can't see, but anybody on the video that's watching the video can see I was smiling because we have asked our CEO that question almost every year. Okay. We want to know, what are you going to do? You've been doing this for 43 years just in this one area. He said, we basically have somewhere right now, this is January 16, 2023, we have somewhere between 7 to 10 more years, 8 to 10 more years to sell land to investors. After that, we'll be servicing all our people until they actually exit. So, even at 10 years, then maybe another 10 on top of that. So we probably got 20 more years that we'll be in business. The question is, what do we do at that point? Well, I think he's 60, so probably he'll retire. As I said, I'm 72. 10 years from now, I'll be 82. I don't think I'm ever going to retire, Mike, but who knows? Maybe I'll kick. Right now, I call myself semi-retired. But we've asked him, well, what about Texas? Because a lot of people are looking at Texas right now. Well, the reason why we're in that 60-mile radius are what we call it the 10 growth factors. There's 10 reasons why, 10 economic reasons why we're in that 60-mile radius, because all 10 are happening at the same time in the same place. We have not seen any other place in the United States of America where all 10 are present. Texas has some. It has flat, cheap land. It has some sunlight, nothing like Southern California. It does have some infrastructure, doesn't quite have the population growth, though that is picking up. Doesn't always have business-friendly city government, though that's changing a little bit. We've got all that and access to a port. So in Texas, you've got, Houston, I guess it's got a pretty big port. But the port of Long Beach and LA, I believe, is the third largest port in terms of tonnage coming in and out in the United States of America. All those big containers that you see on those big giant ships coming across from China and all those other in Japan and every place else, they get unloaded at LA and Long Beach. Where do they go? They get put on trucks and they get taken to distribution centers so that all of the people that are currently buying through Amazon, it's called e-tailing. It's not retailing anymore. It's e-tailing. Remember, you alluded to technology change. That's another thing that COVID sped that up dramatically. Well, Amazon has to build, and Michaels and Skechers and all of the others, they have to build their fulfillment centers within about 100 to 200 mile radius of a major city in order to get it there overnight, because everybody wants it now. I got to have it tomorrow, today if possible, but no later than tomorrow. So they're building these gigantic fulfillment centers. They're like a half a mile by a half a mile square. That's a lot of land. Well, guess who owns the land that they're building the fulfillment centers on? Me and my wife and other Valor investors and other new investors that are coming in, because we're finding where these giant warehouses are being built. How about marijuana grow facilities? Very land intensive. Storage facilities. Hotels.
Yeah.
BYD, it stands for Build Your Dreams. It's a Chinese electric car manufacturer. Apparently, I believe it's the largest one in the world. They built their only North American electric bus manufacturing facility in Lancaster. Happens to be right near a piece of mixed-use property that I own. Well, guess what? When I first went down to visit, small little building, they were making 15 to 20 buses a year, and I think they had 90 employees. 2 years later, I went down. They had expanded to 5 times the size. They were now making 100 buses a year. And just last year, on the other side of my property, which is a half a mile away from that facility, on the other side, half a mile away, they just bought a 160-acre lot, one big lot. So it's half a mile by half a mile, which is a quarter square mile, 160-acre property. They're going to build a second manufacturing plant because their orders are outstripping their current capability to build fast enough. So you got to have a lot of stuff, infrastructure, population growth, job growth, you name it. It's all happening inside that circle, that 60-mile radius, and we just don't see that anyplace else. So where we go, I don't know. We may all retire. We may just take care of our current clients. Maybe we go out, maybe we go to 80 miles instead of 60 miles, but it'll probably be in that same area just because of everything that's going.
Hey everyone, Mike with Average Joe Finances. The Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference, aka RubeCon, is on for 2023. It'll be May 4th through the 6th in Phoenix, Arizona at the Sheraton downtown. I'll be speaking again this year and I want to see you there. This year, I'm doing 2 speaking events, one about growing your investor network through podcasting, and the other is about investing while in the military. We have some great speakers lined up, so you don't want to miss this conference. Visit averagejoefinances.com/RewBcon, REWBCON, or the link in the notes below, and use promo code Mike for discounted tickets. See you there.
What's going on, everybody? So today I want to talk to you about Buzzsprout. The Average Joe Finances podcast recently switched over to Buzzsprout, and I got to say, I am super happy with the progress. Our podcast is now on every single major platform and reaching audiences that we couldn't reach before, which is just super awesome. So thank you to Buzzsprout for being such a great platform, but also I want to say, hey guys, if you sign up for Buzzsprout and you sign up for one of their paid plans using our link, you'll get a $20 Amazon gift card. So go check them out. It's averagejoefinances.com/Buzzsprout, and we'll make sure the link is in the show notes below. Let's get back to today's episode.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, those are all very great and strategic points when it comes to why you invest in those specific areas, for that specific land. That what you just gave was a perfect example too, how they have the one, facility that they built to build buses in one spot. And then right on the other side of your land, they, 160 acres to build another one. What's that going to do to the value of your land that you have there? It's going to shoot up.
Well, there's actually a study that was done within a 1 mile radius of your property. Any new project that comes in increases the value of the land 30%. Within a 2 mile radius, 20%, and within a 3 mile radius, 10%. So every time I hear about a groundbreaking ceremony for a new building or a new solar farm, I'm jumping up and down because my land just went up in value and I didn't do anything.
Yeah,
Didn't
that's awesome.
touch it.
That's awesome.
I had a zoning change on my mixed use property. Remember earlier I said, my land's 10 years old and people have asked me, aren't you concerned? You haven't sold it yet? Well, let's see. I bought it at $2.17 per square foot. A half a mile away, there's a current property for sale for $8.50 a square foot. That's 4 times what I paid. Am I worried? No. But let's see, what else? Oh, the city council rezoned my land from MU4, mixed use 4, meaning 4-story height limit, to MU5. They can now build a 5-story hotel instead of a 4-story hotel. What did that just do to my land? That just 1x'd it again. So now it's worth at least 5 times. And Mike, to be honest, I don't care if I wait another 10 years. If I sell that property after 20 years, it's going to sell for over $1 million. I paid $115,000 for it. And it's in a Roth. So that's $1 million free and clear for 20 years. I'll do that all day long. And if, God forbid, if I don't use up all the money, which I'm going to try, but if I don't use it all up, it goes to my daughter. She's going to be a very, very wealthy woman. That's what we call generational or legacy wealth.
100%.
And that's how you build it over time.
Yeah, I love that. Building that generational wealth, that legacy wealth, like you mentioned. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? Passing it down. So, yeah. So with that being said, if somebody was to, they're listening to this episode, they're like, man, I want to buy land, with Brad and everything. So what does that look like when somebody purchases land, like they go through you and your group and they pick up some land? Do they own that land outright?
Yes. In the state of California, it would be a fee simple deed. It's their land. They can go down and dig holes on it. They can go camp out if the city lets them. I doubt that they would. They'd probably ask them to move. And I guess if it's residential, you could go and pitch a tent. But they own the land outright. It's theirs to do with what they choose. We do offer free negotiation coaching when it comes time to sell, because they may get a call from, let's say, Southern California Edison calls up and says, hi, Mark, we see that you bought 2 acres for $35,000 about 3 years ago, and we'd like to offer you $40,000. And you think, wow, I made $5,000 in a couple of years. No, you don't even respond to them. You say, please send me an email with that information and I'll get back to you. You send the email to me. I go to the COO, the chief operating officer of the company. I show him the email that you sent me, and he gives me a bunch of questions to give to you to ask that company. We may have other investors in the same vicinity as your property who have already been offered 80 or 100 or 150,000. But you wouldn't know that. But we do, because they're our investors, and they're getting the same free coaching that you are getting.
Yeah.
So now
and
you
it's
go back
also
to
in
the
that 60-mile radius. A lot of that is very incestuous for, your
Very.
investors, right?
Very. So we have thousands of investors. So Marcella, my business partner, she and her husband own a property that's 300 feet from a property my wife and I own, zoned exactly the same as business park. And, so yeah. So when she gets an offer, I know I'm going to get an offer. So we then you go back to the energy company and you say, hi, what's the name of the project that you're building? How many acres is it? How many megawatts? When are you breaking ground? When is it going online? Is there going to be a battery energy storage system included? Do you want to buy my land or lease my land? Blah, blah, blah. We give you all these questions, which you probably wouldn't know to ask. We give it to you for free. You go back to the energy company and now they're going, uh-oh, this Mike guy is way smarter than we thought. So what did we say? We offered him 40. So now they go to 70. Okay, you're at 2x. You're still not going to sell. We'll give you more questions. And you might wind up negotiating for a year. Could be 3 months, could be 6 months, could be a year. Back and forth with us there to help you the entire time until you hit the 3x. So 35, I think I said 35 times 3. So 105 minimum is what we would want you to exit at. Let's say they offer you, they finally, after 6 months, they get wise, then they're smart, and they offer you 125. So you're at almost 4, not quite 4. Let's say 140. That would be 4x. And you call me and you say, Brad, I'm at 4x. I'm in the range. Your other people, I don't know what they got, but should I sell? I cannot say yes or no. That's considered financial advice. I'll lose my license and our company probably could get sued. So I'll give you the code, Mike. I'll say, so Mike, they offered you 140. Yeah, and you paid 35. Yeah. Should I sell? Mike, that's an excellent price. Or, Mike, that's current market value in that area. Notice I did not say yes or no, and I did not give you advice to sell or not to sell. I just told you in the code words, yeah, that's a pretty good price. Now, you could do a negotiation, we call it a nibble. You could go back to them and try to squeeze out 150 instead of the 140 or 145, and you might jeopardize the sale. So that's up to you. It's your land, remember? It's your land. Right. You can do what you want. But hopefully you'll say, they'll say, well, the best we could do is 143. Okay. All right.
Twisted my arm a little bit.
You guys are great negotiators. You want to compliment the other side. You're amazing negotiators. I really wanted 150, but let's do a deal. And then we'll even look at the contract. We don't offer legal advice. We want you to get an attorney and have them look at it. But we'll go over it ourselves and look at it and make sure that it's written in your favor because they wrote it in theirs.
Right.
And we want to make sure that they cross out those paragraphs that are detrimental to you, the seller.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the idea too of maybe them coming back and saying they would possibly lease it as well. Because that's a payday right there.
That is a 25-year payday, usually it's usually 15 years with 2 5-year renewables. So you're looking at a 25-year cash flow experience into the millions on a $50,000 piece of property. You make that money back in the first 1 or 2 years. And, they always build in what's called an escalation clause. So whatever amount you got the first year, the next year it's 2% more. Next year it's 2% more of that number, and so on. So you're always going up. And they have these calculators online. You can look them up, and you plug in the number of years, the purchase price, and the 2% escalation clause, and it will tell you at the end of 25 years, you have X. And you look at that number and you went, wow, 50,000 to 1.5 million. Not bad.
Not too shabby.
Not bad. Not too shabby. And I don't have to do anything. It's passive income. Yep. Every month deposited into my checking account. I love it.
That's the beautiful part too. It's land. You're not worrying about tenants, toilets, any of that.
Tenants, toilets, termites, taxes, trouble. Oh, and did I say after 25 years, you still own the land?
Yeah.
It's yours.
Nice.
Now, the panels will probably be out of date. The solar panels in 25 years will be out of date. But they have to come and take them away, or they leave them there and you just renegotiate with PG and say, okay, here, I'll sell it to you for even less. But it's still your land. You still own it.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
It's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's
All right,
why I
Brad.
smile and I laugh all the time when I get on these podcasts. I'm so excited about what I do. It keeps me young.
Well, I had to ask that question. I had to know, like what does it look like at the end of that 60-mile radius? But it looks like, you still definitely there's a lot of meat on the bone still. So still in a really good spot. Okay. So I would like to transition this now into something that I call the final round. It's where I'm going to ask you the same 4 questions I ask everybody else that comes on this show. They're kind of like hard hitting questions just to get a good idea of how Brad is under pressure. So if you're ready to go, we'll get that party started.
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. So, Brad, what is the biggest mistake you've ever made in land investing?
Ooh, I got 2, but I'll just tell you one. Not doing enough due diligence. Trusting the company and what they said without really looking at the land and where it was their population increase, were their job increase. They just said, oh, they're going to build, really wonderful homes on this lake and it's a beautiful area. And I actually went and looked and it was a beautiful area, but it was outside the city and nothing happened. And the land prices kept going down and down and down. And I finally unloaded it and I lost money. I won't say the number, but I lost money. So that was not a good experience with land.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And the next question ties into that, and it might even involve the same thing, but what is something that you've learned that you wish you knew when you first started?
Well, I wish I had met Marcella and her company and learned about the 16-point comprehensive analysis where they, go with a fine-tooth comb and look at, all kinds of issues, easements, and is it in the path of growth? And are there red-legged toads? We've seen some land companies sell land in what are called SEAs, sensitive environmental areas. Those are areas in California where there's a red-legged toad or a tortoise or some animal that has more rights than the humans and prevents development. But because land is buyer beware, they didn't tell the buyer, oh, this is located in SEA. The buyer needed to do that research on their own, and most people don't. So I wish I had known a lot more about what it takes to invest in land the right way before I had bought that first property and then another one that I lost money on as well.
Yeah, very, very fair point. So just like in any investment, or especially any real estate investment, doing due diligence is one of the most important make or breaking pieces of a deal on whether or not you're going to be profitable or take a loss. So that is super important. So I appreciate you pointing that out.
And knowing your exit strategy before you buy.
100%.
You don't know what the end play is, then you're going to be in deep dog doo-doo as well.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I like about our company. They say it's 7 to 10 years. This is how you're going to exit. This is what we'll do to help you on the exit. All of that's laid out ahead of time. And it's made it a lot easier for me with a clear mind, a clear conscience to take money from my retirement funds and put it into land.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And on top of that, you get the free coaching as well when it's time to exit. So you can't beat that. Free is also, I'm not sure if you know this, but free is my favorite price. So, but yeah.
One of my favorite F words. One of my favorite F words. Food,
yeah.
Food is another one.
Yeah. There's a couple 4-letter F words that are great.
Okay. Yeah. This is a family show, so that's
family
about
show.
Folks.
So we're talking about free and food, and free food's also very good.
Food together. So that's wonderful.
All right. Hey, Brad, so do you have any tips or tricks that you would recommend to someone that is just getting started out today?
As far as investing in land or just investing in general?
Investing in land.
Well, you said it yourself, due diligence. Do your research. Whoa, see, there's somebody calling me. I try to turn off my phone, but I can't. But it's probably somebody that wants to buy land, and I'll get back to him later. But do your due diligence. Research the company. Ask a lot of questions. When I teach, or when I used to teach negotiation skills, that was one of the courses I taught when I was a trainer. I would have the ABCs. A is ask more questions. B is be more prepared. And C, cool, calm, and creative. And I think all of those apply in this arena too. If you're going to do any investing, not just land, but pretty much any investing, do your homework, research the company, research the people. In fact, we don't even allow, Mike, we do not even allow people to invest with us until they see a 1 hour, we call it Land Banking 101. That's what we call it. my business partner, Marcella, recorded a 1-hour webinar or a presentation, whatever you want to call it. And you can't even give me money. If you beg me to invest and you haven't seen it yet, I will turn you down. So we make people watch this 1-hour presentation to educate them first. Then they get on a Zoom call with me for usually an hour, and they ask all of the questions that weren't covered in the webinar, which usually isn't that many, but they're a lot more specific to that person. It's 95% of the questions are answered in the webinar. The 5% are all the more esoteric, one-off kinds of questions based on their goals, their history, their background, their money. And then I spend an hour with them. And after that, if they still want to invest, then they get to meet Marcella. And we do a 3-way conversation. And she has to like them, because if we don't like that, if we don't like you, I don't care how much money you have, we will not let you invest with us, because we may be sitting down with you for dinner for the next 10 years at a company meeting, or maybe you come on our annual trip. I'm actually, in a few months, my wife and I are going to Tahiti because of my production level. I won a trip to Tahiti for the two of us. Well, sometimes we take our top finders, or we take family. And I don't want to take someone on that trip that's a jerk. I was going to say another word, but I caught myself in time. I'm not taking a jerk on a trip to meet the other people that are in my velour family. It's just not going to happen. So Marcella has to like you too. So we set the bar pretty high. We don't take just anybody. We actually screen our clients and are very picky about who comes to invest with us. So that's what I tell people, is make sure you do your due diligence. You really check things out. And when you're absolutely 100% sure that you're not going to need the money for at least a decade, that you can afford to put it aside and just be patient and wait, that's when we can do business together.
Yeah, absolutely love that. Absolutely. So yeah, that's the, I guess the big key takeaway there is due diligence, right? And make sure Brad likes you. Okay. If Brad doesn't like you, you're screwed. No, I'm kidding. But no,
yeah, you are kidding, but I'm serious.
Yeah. Due diligence though is super important. And obviously if you're doing good due diligence, Brad's going to like you because you're asking the right questions, you're doing the right things. Exactly. And that's what it's all about. So, okay, Brad, final question of the final round. And that is, do you have a favorite business, investing, or real estate related book or podcast, or both?
I would say I am an avid reader. I've read hundreds of books. I would say a couple at the very top are Harv Eker's Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, which is all about the most important real estate on the planet, which is the 6 inches between your 2 ears. And so that's a great book. T. Harv Eker, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. And Gary Keller, from the company I did work for almost 7 years, the Keller Williams Real Estate Company, he wrote several books, but the one I like the most is called The One Thing. And it's all about the one thing. In fact, you open up the first page and there's a Russian proverb. It says, if you chase 2 rabbits, you won't catch either one. So it's all about focus. It's all about being clear about what it is you want and then going after it and scheduling a week at a time and time blocking and all of those other kinds of things. So those would be 2 of my favorite books.
Fantastic. Yeah, great recommendations. I appreciate that. Okay. So Brad, that is it for the final round. You survived. I knew you would. Yeah. What's up?
Yeah. Well, one more thing. Can I tell people how to get a hold of me? Is that all right?
That was actually the very last question.
Okay, sorry. Sorry.
Yeah. So absolutely. So where can people find more information about you? I know people can email you, but can people follow you on social media anywhere? You have a website people can check out?
Well, my old website is mostly my coaching website from that 40-year career. So that's not really very helpful. They can find me on LinkedIn, Bradley K. Warren. Real easy to find me. I think I'm the only Bradley K. Warren. And there's a picture of me. Actually, my hair's a lot shorter because that was pre-COVID and it's grown a little bit longer. But the best way to get a hold of me is email. And it's very easy. Even those people that are driving in their car can probably remember. It's brad@bradwarren.com. It's just my name. And I answer all my emails within 24 hours, even on vacation. I do take my laptop. I check it, at least once a day. So I get back to people. And then from there, I ask some questions. We can set up a Zoom if it's appropriate, or I'll send you the link to Marcelo's presentation. And sometimes even before I meet somebody, I say, look, before we even meet and spend time together, why don't you watch this video? And if you like what you see, then I'll be willing to meet with you and we could talk further. Because somebody may watch it and say 7 to 10 years. Oh man, that's too far. 25,000? I don't have 25,000. Well, why would I schedule time? I want to save them time and myself time. It doesn't pay for us to meet if there's no chance. So I might just send them the link and let them watch that first. So
right.
Brad@bradwarren.com, best way to get a hold of me.
Yeah. And Brad, I really appreciate what you said too about even people driving can remember that because it's much easier. Because I always tell people on this show too, I'm going to put all these links in the show notes to make it easy so you can copy and paste or click away. But if you're driving, don't do it while you're driving. So I appreciate your disclaimer as well. So, hey, Brad, this has been a real treat. I feel like I learned a lot about land banking just from this short conversation with you. And I'm pretty sure we're going to stay in touch so I can learn a little bit more and possibly invest with you guys as well. I think this is a really great way to diversify someone's portfolio. So, Brad, this has been a treat, man. Thank you so much for coming on.
And well, thank you very much for having me on. And thank all your listeners and viewers for checking it out.
Absolutely. And hey, speaking of my listeners, I want to thank you all so much for joining me and our special guest, Brad Warren, on the Average Joe Finances podcast. Go leave us a 5-star review and tell us what you liked about today's episode with Brad. Aloha from Hawaii and have a great rest of your day. Thank you for making it to the end of this episode. Greatly appreciate you being here with me today on the Average Joe Finances podcast. If you haven't done so yet, make this the episode that you go leave us a 5-star rating or subscribe to our YouTube channel. The Average Joe Finances podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Have an outstanding day.
Thanks for listening to the Average Joe Finances podcast, your source for beating debt, saving money, and investing. Learn more at averagejoefinances.com.